What we've got here is 3 luxury wagons. They're all 100 grand north of, in a couple of cases quite a bit north of 100 grand, so they're not cheap by any means. You might be thinking, these blokes have lost their marbles a bit because they've got 2 cars which are exactly the same. Well, yes, they do look exactly the same, but this Lexus here is a diesel, that one over there is a petrol. This is a Lexus they said they wouldn't build because they couldn't make the diesel engine as quite as refined to match the Lexus brand, which is all about refinement. But anyway, they've done it and they've made it a lot quieter than what it is. The Lexus Petrol over there, the LX570s, a couple of years ago was upgraded for an 8-speed automatic, and we've got that here really to keep this diesel honest, to see how they compare, because that's the car that's always been available. This is a new one. The third thing we've got here is an Infiniti Qx80. Now, you might think, well, who's Infiniti? Well, Infiniti is the luxury arm of Nissan. It is to Nissan as what Lexus is to Toyota. So this is the Infiniti version of the Patrol Y62, which means a 5.6 litre V8. So that gives us 2 petrol V8s and a diesel V8. We're going to take them out, give them a go, and see what we think of them all. This is a Lexus LX570. It's based on a Toyota 200 series, I mean Lexus being Toyota's premium brand. A couple of major mechanical differences between this and a 200, or at least a 200 petrol. This is a petrol engine. If you want petrol in 200, you get a 4.6 litre V8 with a 6-speed automatic. This has got a 5.7 litre V8 with an 8-speed automatic, which obviously means a fair bit more power and torque and more performance. The engine is beautifully smooth and quiet and makes you wish that petrol was a lot cheaper than what it is here in Australia. I mean, other parts of the world petrol is very cheap and this car would be perfect there. The big difference between the chassis between this and the 200, this has got height adjustable suspension, which is a great help off-road, especially given this car's got quite a deep nose on it, sort of like a Darfo, just sort of look to the front of it, so being able to raise it up means you clear that when you're going off-road. Otherwise it's pretty well 200, ladder frame, chassis, live axle at the back, independent front suspension, full-time four-wheel drive, separately lockable centre diff. When you go into low range it brings in what's called multi-terrain select, which lets you select different terrain types like mud or snow or sand or whatever. And for on-road driving you can vary the damping force. So there's a comfort mode and a sport mode and a sport plus mode. Rides very smoothly and softly. I mean, it's very much a luxury car, and the way the dynamics and the suspension tune is much more for luxury than for sport. That said, it still gets along pretty nicely. A big heavy car, but still handles well and does everything you want. Very capable off-road, like a 200. Pretty well, I mean, out of the box. Can't complain about it except for the tyre choice. This has got 22-inch wheels, so there's not a lot of tyre sidewall. Not particularly suitable off-road tyres, but there are choices there, and if you really wanted to, you can put smaller wheels on it for more choice in off-road rubber. This is an Infiniti Qx80, petrol only, and quite an unusual chassis in as much as while it's got an old-fashioned separate ladder frame, it uses fully independent suspension. And more importantly, it's got what Nissan call, and what Infiniti call, hydraulic body motion control. So it's got active dampers rather than passive dampers, coil springs. It does a couple of things. On road, it limits the body roll. In fact, there's almost no body roll whatsoever. It's the flat cornering, even at high speed, is quite remarkable. Yet off-road, it loosens up the suspension travel. There's no sway bars to limit it. So you get a lot of travel off-road. So it's the best of both worlds. It's, you know, tight on road, loose off-road, which is what you want. And it's a rare thing to be able to gain both of those. Engine's a 5.6 litre petrol V8, very high-tech engine, direct injection, variable valve control, variable valve lift. It's part of a Nissan family of engines that are used in motorsport. Sounds like a motorsport engine, sounds terrific. Smooth, nearly 300 kilowatts, so put your foot down, even though it's a heavy car, it's nearly 3 tonnes, put your foot down, it goes like a scalded cat. 7-speed automatic, nice and responsive, smooth shifts, and the powertrain is really superb. And the only downside, like any big petrol V8, it uses a lot of fuel. I mean, if we lived in a country where fuel was cheaper, it'd make a lot more sense. Given Australia's got expensive fuel, that's why people don't buy petrol V8s. This is a new addition to the Lexus four-wheel drive range, 450d. It's a diesel. Interesting thing about this vehicle is that Lexus always said they didn't want to do a diesel on this because they didn't think a diesel could offer the refinement and noise and low NVH that, you know, was part and parcel of the Lexus name and Lexus image and what have you. And they said a diesel was just too rough and noisy and not refined enough. But anyway, they've done it. They've done a lot of work on it actually to make it a bit quieter. I mean, it's a lot quieter than a diesel and a 200. You still know it's a diesel, especially driving in this company against the 2 petrol V8s. When you jump into it, there's no doubt that it is a diesel, but still, in isolation, it's not a noisy engine whatsoever. 200 kilowatts, like the 200. Good performance without being a rocket ship. It's more about torque than power in this vehicle. Like the 570 petrol Lexus, it's got height adjustable suspension. Otherwise, it's pretty well a 200 as you expect. Live axle at the back, independent front, full-time four-wheel drive, lockable centre diff. This is probably the pick of these cars in a way for fuel consumption. But in the transition from the 200 to this, it's lost the third row of seats, which not going to affect everyone, but a lot of people won't be keen on it because they want the extra seating. And compared to the 570 Lexus, it loses quite a bit of kit. No sunroof, no cool seats in the front, no heated steering wheel, lower spec audio, a few other bits and pieces. But then surprisingly, when you compare petrol to diesel, the diesel is actually cheaper than the petrol, whereas in most cases where there's a petrol and diesel option, you pay more for the diesel, but not in this case. So that's a big tick for this vehicle. Okay, we've had a fair run on these cars yesterday, taking them off-road, a fair bit of on-road, dirt roads, what have you. They all deliver on their promise. They promise luxury and four-wheel drivability, and they deliver on both fronts. The one proviso on the four-wheel drivability is none of them really have suitable off-road tyres. What you really need to do is put a smaller wheel on it so you get more rubber on, and you can do that by fitting wheels probably off the 200 series Toyota or the Patrol. But apart from that, they deliver off-road. Which is best is a really complicated question because they've all got their strengths and weaknesses. If we take the petrol Lexus over here, the LX570, it wins on refinement, and this class refinement's really important. I mean, you don't buy a luxury car unless you want refinement. It delivers there, it's got the most amount of equipment, but it's the most expensive. In the middle here, the Infiniti, it's got the best on-road handling and is still pretty good off-road and has got the most performance. The downside is it's got a fairly small tank in it, which is 40 litres less than the Patrol, and with the thirsty engine, the range is pretty poor. That's its shortcoming. In terms of powertrain, if you're trying to balance performance and economy, the diesel Lexus is the best here. But it's got one problem, it's only got 5 seats, and in this class a lot of people want 7 seats. So it really depends on what you want. If you could do without the extra third row seats, this is the pick. If you want performance and on-road handling, this is the pick. If you want refinement, that's the pick.